Here we are again. Last week I got to share the camera with my big brother, one of the four pillars of my success in life. And man, without further ado, I'm excited to sit here with my little brother, the young man that made me become a man quickly. And today we're just going to talk about journeys to success in athletics and thereafter. Without further ado, this is Jade Carter. Let's go on and get started.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, so first and foremost, just glad to have you here on Dare to Be Different.
Yeah.
And man, it was let's just start kind of like we started with Shannon, man. You were a late bloomer. I mean, you grew 5 inches in the midst of your sophomore to junior summer. And things started to transition for you for good and they were kind of trials. So I want you to just kind of talk about that transition mentally and physically.
Man, yeah, I would say not your traditional athletic trials and tribulations that normal people go through. I had a seizure in church when I was in 8th grade. Put me out of school for 2 weeks. Come back from that, going into my freshman year. I had a cyst in my chest, had to have surgery in the middle of basketball season. Then later thereafter, tore my ACL. So after that, come back, sophomore year, I'm a baby giraffe. And had big feet and skinny legs and was just not moving the way I thought I could. And definitely it caused a little bit of my confidence to be shot, a little bit. And I think that's the number one thing that kids these days need to understand is that your mental is most important. Whenever I started to lose that confidence, it makes you lose your drive and makes you lose your focus. And I think that's kind of where I was my sophomore year. A few of my sophomore teammates were getting in on varsity a little bit, and here I was, this JV kid, coming back from all these injuries, and then hit that growth spurt that summer. Got my first dunk at Booker T on the small goal though. It's like 9 3/4.
Yeah.
But I got my first dunk at Booker T. You know what I'm saying? And then from there, I just kind of started to get my legs under me. Started to play more, playing 1-on-1 at the park with my homie Tyler, and just staying in the gym, staying focused on my books. And I was patient. I think you can't lose patience and you can't lose focus. And I think once I was able to refocus on my goals, that's when I was able to turn the table on everybody else and get on that court.
There you go. And that's interesting, segueing into just the mentality of not being the starter. Feeling like you've worked your tail off and feeling like you have the ability to start even at the high school level. So your junior year, you didn't start off as a starter on varsity. You were coming off the bench, 6th or 7th man. But just waiting patiently and understanding that opportunity is going to present itself and just being prepared mentally and physically to take advantage of that opportunity when it comes. So how were you able to do that, knowing that you're playing with friends that you play with every day, that you might murder at the gym if y'all are just doing recreation ball, and unfortunately a coach sees something different and they have a different outlook for what they want you for your role to be on the team. So how were you able to be patient in the midst of that?
Man, I'll tell you, it was crazy because not many people know this, just me and Robbie. But one night I was crying in my room. I mean, some of my best friends were starting. Some of them were sophomores and a couple of guys that were juniors like me. And they weren't really basketball players, and I love this game. I quit football the year before, and I really loved basketball. That was my game. So I would come home and I'd be like, I called my brother. I was talking to Robbie. I was like, man, I do the same things he can do. I can do that. I can do this, and I was comparing myself instead of trying to reach excellence within myself. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
I was comparing myself. So Robbie just told me, he said, man, you're speaking as if you're ordinary. He was like, where we're from, ordinary don't cut it. Mm-hmm. And he told me you had to be extraordinary. So, I started writing that in my room, wrote it on the ceiling, wrote it in the bathroom, extraordinary. You know what I mean? So that's kind of what it lifted my mental a little bit, that I had to do extra. I couldn't just be able to shoot like the person starting over me. I can't just be able to say I can rebound as good as him. I had to rebound better. I had to shoot better. So I got more shots up. I started playing up with Drew Saunier and Randy Lake and all those cats at the gym and Clint Phillips. Like, I would play up with them and try to defend them and get up on them to make my defense better and just gain that confidence and try to be better than everybody that steps on that court. And it was crazy because we were playing Noble at home. We should have beat Noble by 50, like every year. But Noble was up on us 13 going into the fourth quarter. And Coach Fike, he was a soccer coach, coaching basketball. he looked down the bench, started the fourth quarter. He said, Carter, go. You're playing the whole quarter. These cats don't want to play. Go show me something. I said, all right. And as soon as I walked to go check in, I walked to that X. And the only thing going through my mind was, like, be extraordinary. Don't just go out there and be happy to be on the court. And a lot of times kids get in that moment, they're afraid of failure. They're afraid to be subbed out. They're afraid of the person in front of them. They're afraid of what they might mess up. All I could tell myself is that I'm going to go be great. I'm going to go be extraordinary. I went in there, I hit 4 threes in the fourth quarter, and heck, I basically did not start another game for the rest of my high school career.
Nice. That's a testament to just being able to persevere through the midst of adversity. Adversity being one of the common topics of this conversation. Your nephew, my oldest, struggled through adversity this year. I mean, he's a better player than what they have him playing in a role. But I told him, hey man, this is a great opportunity. If you only understood that the adversity that some of the greats that go through, that's where you build character, and that's where your pinnacle, that's where your foundation is made. Absolutely. In the midst of adversity. So it wasn't just high school that you had adversity though. I mean, you were able to come and have a good, successful high school career, but after that, you were blessed to get an opportunity to go play at Redlands Community College, where it had a slew of good athletes. And I mean, you made the team your freshman year, and then you went through some more adversity in this game that you love. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Man, that might have been what saved my life, to be honest. So, my last year of high school, I started to do some things I probably shouldn't do. I like to party, have fun, so basketball was fun. I was, chasing girls, stuff like that, stuff you shouldn't be doing, when you have a goal. So I go into college. Of course, I was excited that Coach Eck allowed me to be on the team. I went and got a job. I stayed home instead of moving into the dorms, of course, or into the apartments. And I stayed home, and I was still kicking it with my high school friends, and and kind of, I was still in high school in my mind, but I was just happy to be on the team. I wasn't trying to make a point to show that I belonged on the team. I was happy to be on the team. We were the number 1 junior college in the nation. Had cats that should have been D1, but didn't have the grades or had to fix some things attitudinal wise. But I was just happy to be on the team. And shoot, halfway through the season, Coach X pulls me into the office and says, "Hey, you're not really clicking with the guys. You missed team dinner. You missed a couple of team movies." I remember they watched Remember the Titans at his apartment. I didn't show up. I went and kicked it with my homeboys, and that was it. He was like, "You're just not vibing well. I expected you to be more present." Mm-hmm. And he's like, so basically told me, "You can keep your shoes, but that's it," to my face. And I went home and was humbled. So it was the most humbling experience of my life. I was stuck in high school, like I said, and when that happened, it was like I hit a wall. I started working at the casino and going to school. My grades started to drop a little bit, and I went back into that sophomore Jade mode where I lost my vision. So that was the most humbling experience I went through. But definitely I was able to turn it around. But that was a tough time.
Yeah, and humbling that is. I remember in college you used the word humble. I got to college and ended up getting redshirted, and I had a similar moment like you had your junior year. Sitting in my dorm room, my friends are out partying and having a good time, and I'm redshirted, so I'm not even getting to play. So all I'm doing is just working on getting better and everything. But I was like, man, I'm watching some of these guys, and I'm like, man, I can compete with these people. Why did I redshirt? Why didn't I just play? And so I called Shannon instead of Robbie. I called Shannon, and Shannon was playing minor league baseball at the time. And I told him, I said, man, I think I'm just going to go take a different opportunity and go play basketball. This football thing's not for me. And Shannon kind of gave me the same speech that Robbie gave you. He was like, man, do you know where we're from? Do you know what we are? Who gave birth to us? Do you know the lineage that we're from? And I just listened to him. And it's just that speech and just talking to somebody that understands the struggle that we went through to get to where we are today or at that point in my life. And it's like, yeah, man, how am I even letting such ill will or ill thoughts creep into my head?
Yeah.
And so after that conversation, I was like, man, I appreciate it. So I even grind harder.
Yeah.
And I got back to work and got back to the physics that got me to where I was at that point, which, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat and act like nobody ever helped me throughout that. I mean, shout out to Ross Hill, who I call my godfather this day, the Richard Byrd songs, the Ron Wards, the Randy Stevensons. These are all some coaches that I had throughout my Little League years that were inspirational to me. But when it comes to high school and thereabout, I mean, I can't sit here and put a finger on too many people that were just like, that fed me the right energy to get to where I was collegiately.
I like that.
I mean, Coach Randall was a wrestling coach that jumped in late in football my senior year. I mean, he was just a motivational guy. I mean, won 11 straight state championships. Absolutely. Yeah. But when it comes down to relating to kids and getting to know me, I didn't feel like none of my coaches truly knew where I come from or what the struggle was outside of school and in my household. And so that was a transition for me. And it sounds like that's the same transition for you, where I had to get my head back on the swivel and be like, man, I'm better than what I'm giving myself the ability or the credit for. And I just had to get back to work and go back to grinding. And so, So after that, you said.
Tell me about tell them about the time when you were in your dorm room, man. Where'd you get you take the football in your hands, man?
That was in dark. That was
found you in your room.
That was actually in my apartment, and I really don't like to talk about that publicly. But since you asked, so my redshirt freshman year, I still didn't get to start. It was another level of adversity I went through. I only had 5 catches as a redshirt freshman for 122 yards. But my sophomore year, before I ever played a down as a starter, I told the people that were close to me, I said, I'll lead the nation this year. I'll be the best receiver in college football. Yeah. I promised them. To a point where people would tell me, he said, man, you're just too cocky, man. There's something about, man, you were way too cocky. And I was like, man. So I printed out a letter and I taped it on my locker, and everybody would walk by and they thought I was even more cocky for taping this letter. But it said, some people say I'm conceited. I think it's self-confidence.
There you go.
And so I don't care about other people's perception. I got to a point where I didn't care because I knew I put the work in. I knew where I come from, and I knew what I had prepared mentally and physically. I knew I was going to do something great that year. And so, what you're talking about, to get to that, I lived with 2 friends, Ashanti and Dre, still good friends to this day. And so I had set my schedule to where I'd have some time alone by myself in the house. Yeah. And so they would go to their classes or they would go do whatever they were going to do. And I had my room set up to where there was a chamber in my room that was blocked off. It was about a 6 by 8 foot chamber. And so I had a chair, and I would shackle myself to a chair. And only Shanti or Dre had the key. And so I would shackle myself, and there was a football hanging from the ceiling. And it was just out of arm's reach to where I literally could not touch it. And I just focused on that ball. And I would do that 2 to 3 times a week. And that's what I would do instead of going out and doing what normal college kids did. Yeah. And I mean, the rest is history. I mean, my sophomore year, I had 76 catches for 1,500 yards.
There you go.
And so, and I'm not going to say that that's what contributed to it, but I'm saying that's where my focus was at. I wanted to be laser focused, and I knew what my potential was, and I knew what I had to do to get there. And I know my body. I can't go out and party. I couldn't go out and do what other people's doing and still stay focused. I suffer from not being focused or getting easily distracted. Yeah. So I know when I hone in on something, I know I'm capable of a lot. So with that being said, getting back to you. So your distractions subsided, and now you know the game that I love has slipped out of my grasp, but I still have the ability. I'm still young enough, and I have the ability to still play this game because you played it recreational still. Yeah. And so in your grades, you've always been a studious person. You just made some poor choices, which a lot of young people do. Mm-hmm. So now, where's your mindset at?
Man, so at that time, like I said, I was working, going to school, and I just felt my body changing. Like you said earlier, there's some late bloomers out there. I started to gain some muscle mass. I was working out every day. I mean, D'Angelo's crazy stuff. We used to go work out in the weight room all the time. Like, he would just be in there. He was playing baseball there, and he had just stopped, and he was like, man, I work out with you. So we were working out every day. My body just started changing. My athleticism went to another level. I was windmilling, whatever I wanted to do, and it became fun to me again, and I realized what my calling was. I was going to be playing college basketball no matter what anybody said, and like that same mindset you said you had, no one was going to stop me this next time. Nobody, not my environment, not my past, nothing was going to get in my way. So, I refocused on the goal, and basically I called around to different schools. I even called y'all to see who y'all knew, and I drove up to these schools, and a couple of my friends rode with me a couple of times, and I just went and tried out at all these schools. I tried out at Bacone, I went to Mid-America and St. Gregory's and OBU and all these different schools to try out, and Bacone, St. Gregory's, and Mid-America offered me scholarships. So then again, now I'm going crazy, all right? So now I'm back on it. So and it just so happens at St. Gregory's I had a chance to go there with one of my best friends, Corey Standiford. So that was the option that I was able to take. So we went to school there, and another level of adversity. My shoulder went out of place, and I was struggling in practice, and so my best friend started over me. One of my best friends started over me at St. Gregory's. So I made the team, and he's starting over me. So here's my new adversity, right? So here's something new, and we're roommates. So and you know me, I'm not one to sit idly by and just be okay with where I'm at, and I'm not gonna make excuses. I'm just gonna fight every day. So being back on that court, being in a school district, I've kind of distanced myself from the El Reno environment at that time. I still had the spirit of El Reno in my soul, deep in my soul, but I had to distance myself and focus on the game of basketball and my education, and I went there with the idea that I was going to play a 2-3, get to shoot a lot of threes, and average 30 points. And the coach told me, "You're the toughest person on this team, man. I need you to play the 4." So here I am, 6'4", 175 soaking wet, out there guarding people 6'8", 260. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of times I finished with more rebounds and more points than the person 6'8", 260. That's just how we're raised. It's something inside of us from El Reno that we don't back down from a challenge, man. So I was able to gain that love back, man, and I focused. I worked every summer. I lived with my brother Shannon the summer after and worked hard, and it was a spiritual lift for me, and it was a godsend, and I'm just blessed to be able to play and prove that I can play at that level, and not to prove to others that I can play at that level, but to prove to myself. And I think that's what it's mostly about. I think people care too much about how the world views them and what's going on around them, and they need to focus on their own personal goals. And that's what I did, man. And it was a success. So a lot of my relationships, I met my wife there. My business partner, I met him there. I met relationships that helped me get jobs. Once I left St. Gregory's, man, I still go ride by there. Even if I don't have anything to do, I'll ride by there and just sit there and look at the long driveway to get in there and just just have a remembrance of some of the memories that I had, and that fire is still burning inside me. And then I'll go back and try to spread that love through some of these young people that I coach.
And there's a reason. There's a reason for me wanting to interview and speak with you and Shannon before speaking with anybody else, because there's one thing that we all have in common is that we played ball of some sort at a high level. You basketball, me football, Shannon baseball and football. But now let's transition into your journey now. You brought something up. You met your business partner there. When we talk about business, your business is next level organization.
Yes.
I procrastinated a long time to start Dare to Be Different. I've had a lot of things going on. You have these young kids growing to be teenagers and they have lives, but I think there's no time like the present, especially, I kind of touched on it with Shannon tad bit, man, being back involved in the school and just being around even AAU athletics, the travel ball teams and stuff like that. The morals, the character of these kids, the mindset, it's just a different animal. And so I really appreciate what you and D-Wash do in the next level organization. And you all have taken that environment to the next level, especially one of the most toxic things in travel ball sports, AAU sports, are these coaches that just go and try to create powerhouses.
Yeah.
No matter if I'm fudging age groups or no matter if I'm just trying to get the best players in the state or in the nation to collaborate. And that is what's causing these kids to have the mindset that they feel entitled to something and have a false expectation on reality. Whereas next level, they go out and get some kids that just love the game and want to work hard. Absolutely. And one of the what I've seen out of next level, which I like and you can elaborate on, is that you all's kids have a moral compass.
Yes.
And they have a certain code of ethics and conduct. Otherwise, they won't be a part of the organization. So I just want you to talk about Next Level as an organization and how you all got to that.
Man, it's a crazy story. So we actually started Next Level to train and help young people get into college. So we started it basically focused on exposure. Mm-hmm. So our very first event was an exposure camp that we held, and a couple of the coaches that coach on Next Level were at that camp, which is what's crazy. But so we held an exposure camp, and we saw the need to help kids get into college. And there's 18, 19, and 20-year-olds at our camp, and there's some 17-year-olds there as well. And there's some college coaches that came there to our first camp, and we were excited. But then that fire just started, to burn a little deeper. So we started individually training kids at the high school and junior high level, and then we began training kids, and we realized as we trained kids, like, man, it's a lot of bad business people out there and a lot of bad coaches that are not doing right by kids. So some of the kids we trained, I just decided one day, like, hey, you know what? I'll coach you, man. Get some of your friends. Let's go play. You know what I'm saying? I'll coach you. So then I started AAU. So Derek was like, I don't know if I'm gonna get into it, and then and then slowly he started coaching as well. And then I started coaching AAU. Man, I saw the need. I wanted to be a little more personal than just that hour of training session. I wanted you to be around me. I wanted you to pick up on that. You can be a young black kid from the hood and still wear a suit and a tie. You can still carry yourself and show where you're from, but still be respectful and be able to talk like you have some sense. And I think that the more they're around us, the more that they realize, like, man, he's just like me, but he carries himself a certain way, because I carry myself like I'm going to be great. I don't like to carry myself as if to try to fit in. I don't fall into the crowd. I want to stick to what I know. And I think with Next Level, those kids that we want are kids that maybe needed that push that we needed when we were younger. My partner Derek also, he was from Virginia Beach, hopped on a bus, drove all the way to New York to try to walk on to a junior college, and made the team, and was third string and had to work his way up to being a starter on that team in a junior college, and then made his way to St. Gregory. So his story is similar too. He had some adversity. So we build this organization based on helping people that want to be better than what the world views them as. So help you be able to overcome adversity, help you be able to strengthen your body, strengthen your skill set, and just to be able to develop. So our teams, they compete. Everybody wants to beat us. We get into it with people every week. Everybody wants to beat us. Everybody compares themselves to us, and we compare ourselves to other people and try to build off of that too. But at the end of the day, we're just trying to help kids. We're loyal. We're a family, and we want people to grow and to thrive under our tutelage, and that's pretty much it. But I would say that the best thing that happened to me with Next Level is getting a kid that no one wanted, no one believed in, and then they get a college scholarship. We actually have had the privilege. I had kids get offers from UCO, and kids go to Seminole State, and kid went up to a JUCO in Kansas, and I had a kid go to Southwest Christian, and then this year one of our long-term Next Level kids, we had him at camp since he was 8 years old. Man, he just got a scholarship to OCU, one of the dream schools for him. You know what I mean? So he's going to OCU in the fall. His whole school's paid for. And you see a lot of offers and stuff online, and kids are like saying, "Yeah, I got this offer," and there's really no money there. There's just the coach told you come to school there, But to have your entire school paid for, and no one really hyped you or was searching for you or wanting you on those those big AAU teams that are trying to get the kid that can go windmill and go between the legs. We take chances on kids like that, and I just appreciate the kids that actually believe in us and will go to work for us and go to war. So that's what it's about.
There's I try to take something out of everything that you've spoken about, and one thing I take out of this one is going to be a touchy conversation, but I like what you said about how you conduct yourself off of a court, because a lot of times we get this misconception that we got to be a dog all the time. Mm-hmm. And so we have a lot of young athletes now that the way they perform and present on the court or on the field, with that dog mentality, aggressive nature, almost ruthless type nature, we'll take that when the game is over and take that into our normal society in our everyday lives. And that is, I'm glad that you touched on that, because that's one thing that I value about Next Level. That's one thing that I value about what my motive is in daring to be different.
Absolutely.
Especially growing up in a predominantly black community and with a lot of young black athletes these days, the one thing that I see that we're failing at as mentors is that we allow these athletes to step off the court and still be the same person they are on the court, off the court.
That's absolutely.
And we're not leading and guiding in a way that is going to give them opportunities after the life of sports.
Yeah.
And so that's really, really, really important. It's really, really, really vital, because I see so many kids that are falling by the wayside. And we had some in our hometown, and some of them, they mentored us and they talked to us quite often, like, hey, man, the decisions I made, it wasn't just all about athletics. How are you going to conduct yourself when the lights go off?
Absolutely.
What are you setting yourself up for academically, financially, and for a future? And are you able to articulate yourself? Mm-hmm. One of the worst compliments you can get as one of the worst ones that hit me the hardest is when somebody says, oh man, you articulate yourself so well.
Yeah.
Or you're so, I hate that. What? So
I can't
am I
stand
not?
when someone
Am I not
says, "I can't
supposed
stand
to?
it." Can't
So,
stand it.
but that unfortunately that is the perception sometimes.
Yes, it is.
And so when somebody feeds into the negative perception or the negative persona of that, and give people reason to say, oh, well, you present so well, it's because there are a vast majority of our culture that don't.
Yeah.
They feed into the stigma of you're just a jock or you're just an athlete or you're ignorant. And that is the one stigma that, man, I will die trying to give back to these young
Same.
men and women. And it's not just black culture, but from the neighborhoods that we grew up in, the kids that we're able to relate to and touch, we have to continue to do those works and try to instill in these young men and women that, hey man, you have more value than just athletics.
Yeah.
And your life, like Shannon said, the ball will deflate one day. Whatever ball you're using will deflate and it'll go away. And then who are you in the midst of society? What do you have to offer that's going to impact people? And so, I really do think that that's where we need to be focused at.
And to touch on it a little bit, I think the majority of that is your EQ, your emotional intelligence. Mm-hmm. And I talk about it with my students a lot in class. I've talked about it with the basketball team I coach over at McGinnis. And I talk about it with next level kids some too. When you come from our community, if you don't have a high EQ, if your emotional intelligence is not high, it is impossible to be successful because you're going to encounter so much adversity and so much toxicity that if you don't have a high EQ, you're going to fail. You're going to respond in situations negatively. You're going to fight. You're going to, you may even get involved in crime or drug. You never know what may happen. So your EQ has to be high, and to keep it that way is you always have to have a goal or a vision in your mind. If everything you do is not intentional to purposely, positively affect your vision, then you have to be able to step away or to just walk the other way. And I think that's one thing that God has blessed me with is that I have high intuition and I have a very high EQ. And I thank God for that every day. And that's one thing I would like to bless a lot of young people with is that if your emotional intelligence is high, if in the moment if in a heated moment, in an emotional state, if you can think about your vision or think about your family or just your family history. I mean, I think about what my mom went through sometimes whenever I'm going through a situation where I want to respond like, I will get on you right now. Like I'm ready to go there. You know what I'm saying? And I'll think like, man, my mom sacrificed, didn't even get to graduate high school for me to go graduate college and get this job. Now I'm teaching and I'm coaching and I'm living my dream and I'm married with kids, got 2 kids. It's like, is this punk somebody I'm willing to go there with? So that's how I think. And a lot of people, when you're growing up, they'll call you soft or they'll say, hey, you're not tough or, oh man, Jade, you can't fight or something like this. But, I'll go there, but it's no point. I always had this vision that I was going to be great. And no one on the streets or no one in a gym or no one anywhere is going to be able to take that from me because that's what God had for me. So yeah, keeping a high EQ is the most important thing for these kids. And I bring it up all the time that if this generation, if they had a high EQ, they would be more successful than we were because they have so much more at their fingertips.
Absolutely.
So much more. From technology to just access to educational tools and just be able to go places, travel abroad. Like I didn't know anything outside Oklahoma City. You was in El Reno. If you wanted to travel, you went to Oklahoma City. I went to Tulsa. You know what I mean? I thought I was doing it. These kids, they can go to Africa or go to Jamaica or Hawaii. I thought I was doing it just going to Tulsa. So it's a different generation. They see so much more, and they could be so great, man. I'm one of those people that I'm optimistic about them, about these young people. That's why I do what I do. But they're so triggered. They're easily triggered, and I think if they could all have a little bit higher EQ, I think that this world will be a lot better, and we'll all be able to thrive.
Well, there's not much more to be said. If you happen to be in a situation of authority where you have young people that you are responsible for, I mean, what better words to hear? This is a podcast you need to tap into. Show all your young ones because you have to have an high EQ, and then you have to understand that the world doesn't revolve around you, and you're going to have lots of adversity in your life. And you got to dare to be different sometimes. Don't feed into the masses, okay? Don't feed into what the world has in store. You need to feed into what you have in store for self. So believe in yourself, and when the world tries to make you a clone, stand alone and dare to be different.
Absolutely.